welcome to part 2 of the programme. We are in Halle, a small town in Flanders on the linguistic border with Wallonia. In this part of the programme, we will be introducing you to Flanders, of course, and also taking a peek into Belgium's neighbours, the Netherlands and Luxembourg. First then, let's go and meet Flemish nationalist MEP Mark de Mesmaeker from the New Flemish Alliance, or NVA. Well, and here we are in this park in central Halle with Mark de Mesmaeker. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you and welcome.
Thank you. Let's take a little walk and talk about your party. It was in the federal government until the end of 2018. Then came this vote about whether Belgium should sign up to the United Nations Migration Compact or not. Your party refused to join in. It caused the government to collapse. And your party's now outside of the federal government. Is this regrettable to you?
We only regret that our coalition partners, with whom we worked together very well, I must say, all these years, didn't want to talk about it anymore. So opening a dialogue there would have been, the way forward, but they didn't want to discuss it anymore, so that's a pity.
Your party was very steadfast on this point of view that signing up would undermine Belgium's stance against illegal migration. But the Migration Compact is not legally binding. Isn't that really just fake news?
No, it is not legally binding, that's true. But even if it is not legally binding, you see in practice that these kind of compacts and treaties, at the end, they trickle down in everyday practice, judicial practice.
Well, your party used to be much more campaigning on environmental themes than we've heard in recent weeks with all this focus on migration. Is this about not wanting to lose votes to the far right?
No, our concerns for the environment, for the climate are genuine. And of course, migration policy will be an important part of the campaign as well.
But just speaking about Flanders and your party as a nationalist Flemish party, do you actually want full independence for this region?
We've drawn like a blueprint for a confederal model, where in principle, indeed, all the competences belong to the two big communities and where we can decide in the end what we will do or what we want to do together. Not because we have to, but because we want to.
So not necessarily making Flanders an independent state, or is that really the end goal?
Well, the end goal is an independent state, of course. We realize, of course, that we'll have to share competence. We have to share competence in the bigger, on the bigger level, which is the European Union.
Now, looking from the outside, Belgium is a little hard to understand, but...
Yes, it's a little hard to understand in Belgium as well.
Well, but it is a wealthy country. It has a higher GDP per capita, for example, than the United Kingdom or France. It is a country that functions, it works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, perhaps.
Well, it doesn't function that well as you think. There's this democratic deficit, and we could do better. Flanders could do better, and I'm really convinced that Wallonia can do much better as well.
What do you mean Wallonia could do better?
Well, you see in all the data that they are linking behind. They have now been too dependent on Flanders, on also the financial transfers every year. So they could do better, but they have to take responsibility.
Looking at more international matters, we can see from your lapel pin that you and your party support the Catalan separatists. Like the Catalan separatists, your party, the NVA, would like to be independent but stay part of the European Union. My question is that really advantageous? You would be a smaller country again within this big bloc of the EU that is only likely to get bigger.
It would be smaller, but it would be more efficient and more democratic. It's all about democracy. It's the question, where do you lie the power? As close to the people as possible, in my opinion.
You're not worried about being submerged by these huge countries neighbouring you, Germany, France?
Small, medium-sized nations perform better. So I'm not afraid at all. It's the big, centralised countries who have a problem, in my opinion.
All right, we'll have to wait and see. Mark de Mesmaeker, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Well, we were talking about how immigration has come into Belgian political discourse there. Also a big topic in the neighbouring Netherlands. Our reporter Luke Brown has been to find out more.
Writing this book opened a new chapter in Joram van Klaveren's life. Titled Apostat, it tells his journey from far-right politician to convert to Islam.
The reason I wrote it wasn't something to be proud of. I think I've been a member of the most anti-Islamic party in the world. And when you become a Muslim, then the things you said and done before aren't the things you would like to have said in the past.
Having grown up as a strict Protestant, the changes come as a culture shock.
I'm getting Arabic lessons right now. When I try to pray, they teach me, hey, you can do it like that, you can do it like this. So that's very friendly and very helpful for me.
Van Claveren started as an MP for the PVV, a far-right party renowned for its anti-Islam stance. At the time, he called the Quran a poison and Islam a lie. But he broke with the populist movement in 2014, after its leader, Geert Wilders, called for Moroccan immigrants to be sent home. Van Claveren's own revelation came as he researched a book that was supposed to denounce Islam.
That's the past me was someone who looked at Islam through the eyes of the far right. And I think that the far right, ironically enough, has the same view as extremists have when it comes to Islam. And I don't think that is Islam.
Van Claveren launched his own party, For Netherlands, in 2014. Its views were staunchly right-wing, socially conservative, pro-free market and Eurosceptic. Journalist Jan Roos helped found the party and was close to Van Claveren. For him, his conversion came out of the blue.
It's as if a black man decided to join the Ku Klux Klan. But why?
The For Netherlands party failed to gain any seats at the last election. For Jan Roos, his former comrades' political values are incompatible with his newfound faith.
I don't believe in de-Islamization. That's the difference between the barbarians and the free West. We allow people their freedom, but we shouldn't tolerate intolerance.
5% of the Netherlands' 17 million citizens are Muslims, but Islam occupies a disproportionate part of the political debate. Joram van Claveren's conversion comes at a time of increasing polarization. For Said Bouharou of the Council of Moroccan Mosques, it's an opportunity for Islam in the Netherlands.
We hear too often one-dimensional voices. Things like, Islam is not good. Islam means violence and oppression. And now we have someone who's a politician, who is a talented speaker, and who can analyze and defend what he says. It's a helping hand for the community.
Van Claveren has left politics behind him. He now works as a teacher, a media commentator, and is studying for a doctorate in comparative religion. Far from the violent clichés, he sees Islam as central to Europe's future.
Historical Islam fits in perfectly, but it's up to Muslims to show that we can, and it's up to Europeans to accept the fact that the world has changed.
Apostat is set to be translated into English and Arabic, but Islamophobia is still a vote winner. The PVV is on track for second place in the European elections.
Well, you find us now here in the throne room in Ghent's historic town hall with a Ghent local, former Belgian Prime Minister Guy Verhofstadt. Thank you very much for being with us.
Yep, hello.
Also a leader of the Liberals group in the European Parliament. And I'd like to tackle a European theme. We've just seen that report from the Netherlands that shows how themes of immigration have really become dominant themes in politics in Europe. We've also seen support for populists growing. Now, there are predictions that the populist parties, the fringe parties, are going to do extremely well in May's European elections. Does that mean that more centrist parties like yours have lost the argument?
I think it's the opposite. Migration has dominated the political debate, but that's because there is a lack of Europe, because we have a crisis, a migration crisis, because there is no European migration policy.
But some people say that we have a crisis because Europe is attracting.
No, absolutely not. We got a huge crisis of refugees in Syria. That is the war in Syria, and these people have tried to come into Europe to be protected. So the real crisis in Europe on migration is a lack of European Union, a lack of European policies. And I'm pretty sure that besides the populist and the nationalist. It will be the pro-European parties who make this case, this argument, who will win the elections.
Well, as someone who is vocally pro-Europe, how do you intend to win voters around to your point of view?
But again, to give a vision of Europe for the future. We are saying that we need a reform, a rebirth of the European project and the European Union.
Well, I'd like to talk now about an affair in one of Belgium's neighbouring countries that has raised some questions about governance in Europe. I'm talking about the Lux Leaks scandal that broke a couple of years ago. Our reporter Clovis Casali has been to meet one of the whistleblowers who broke this story back in 2014.
Raphaël Allais returns to Luxembourg, a country where he has many enemies. He's one of the two whistleblowers behind the Lux Leaks scandal. The Frenchman worked for accountancy firm PwC when he leaked confidential papers on tax evasion schemes involving large corporations.
The whole story began with something very small, me employed for some paperwork, and it ended up becoming something huge, an international scandal. Then it led to me being jobless for 2 years. I had to sell my car, contract loans, empty my bank account to pay my lawyers.
After 3 trials, Luxembourg courts reduced his suspended jail sentence to a €1,000 fine. He's now decided to take the Grand Duchy to the European Court of Human Rights for violating his freedom of expression. He felt it was his duty to inform the public on the level of tax paid by giants like IKEA, Amazon, and Apple. According to Raphaël, little has changed since the scandal broke in 2014.
Many companies are still based here in Luxembourg. Many companies are set up in the same building. One can wonder how it's possible. Like here, look, there are so many. How can they all fit? It seems there are no employees, little physical presence.
The financial sector generates over a third of Luxembourg's economic wealth. But while keen to remain attractive to businesses, it also needs to reassure fellow EU member states about its controversial tax rulings.
Tax rulings enable companies to pay less taxes. It's an agreement between them and the government, the fiscal authorities. They get to pay a lot less, 2, 3, 4%, instead of the usual 20, 25%.
Luxembourg was urged by the European Commission to review these favourable tax arrangements. Now each case needs to be approved by a panel of 10 experts, and not just one person like before. In 2017, the panel slashed the number of rulings by more than half, but the total remained high at 230 agreements. Journalist Fabien Grasseur covered the Lux Leaks scandal and the government's response.
The government wants to change Luxembourg's image. It's looking to improve it, change its reputation of tax haven and money laundering nation. A communication campaign was launched in 2014 with a significant budget, €9.5 million over 7 years. The Prime Minister repeats, we are no longer a tax haven, but an economic oasis.
By ending banking secrecy and putting in place an automatic exchange of information, Luxembourg is now playing fair, according to this accountant.
Before, you could have some money or income hidden, if you like, in Luxembourg, and not have to declare anything in your own country. But now it's totally impossible. They automatically exchange the information. They had to change because of the pressure of other countries, even though Luxembourg is not alone in offering advantageous fiscal arrangements.
Ireland, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom are among those also offering low taxes to large corporations. But these fiscal policies come at a cost. EU authorities say the European Union loses around €1 trillion of income a year due to tax avoidance.
That report from Clovis Casali. Guy Verhofstadt, the Lux Leaks scandal, it implicated a very small country in Europe, but some very well-known people, including Jean-Claude Juncker, the current head of the Commission. Is this the kind of EU that people have to get used to living in, where there can be these kind of scandals?
No, it's the opposite. Europe is the answer. On the European level, you can decide on a common tax policy. You can harmonize the tax policies, or at least you can try to find a common tax base.
Well, that hasn't happened yet, though, has it?
No, but there is a proposal that has been put on the table now, and there is, I think, a huge majority in the institutions, between the member states, and certainly in the European Parliament, to go forward with that idea.
Well, there are some member states for whom being financial havens in various ways has been very advantageous to their economies, and those countries are seen as holdouts on this kind of issue.
I'm in favour to continue to have a little bit of competition between member states, because a little bit of competition between member states is the best way to keep the taxation as low as possible for our small and medium companies, so that they can compete with companies outside Europe. But again, if you want to eradicate these behaviour, the best way, the only way to do this, is to have a policy on the European level.
All right, I'd like to talk about your own country, Belgium, where there currently is a caretaker government. Now, there have been predictions that after the election, there could be a situation where once again Belgium goes for a fairly long period without a government. Is this country becoming ungovernable?
On the contrary, I have been Prime Minister of this country for nearly nine years. With two different governments. And at the end, we always find in Europe a compromise.
All right, Guy Verhofstadt, thank you very much for your time. Well, it's here on Ghent's historic waterways that we'll say goodbye for now to Belgium and to you. Our teams will be back here, though, and all around the continent over the next couple of weeks, touring around, bringing you coverage in the lead up to the European elections. And we will be back for those as well. On May 26th, the results of the European and Belgian national elections. We'll see you then for sure on France 24.